Remember when Konami decided to try to make the battle phase cool again in 2021 by putting it on a caveman archetype? Hilariously, that's what you'll feel like playing War Rocks. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has evolved to a point where effects that resolve around the battle phase aren't as prevalent in the game anymore due to the quickness of the game. Though some battle phase oriented cards like Evenly Matched are still seeing play, the ye old faithfuls like Mirror Force and Magical Cylinder are gaining dust on TCGplayer due to the same reason that War Rocks aren't seeing play. Decks have to succeed in all phases of Yu-Gi-Oh! To see viability. Somewhere a Runick player is laughing at this statement. However, the exception doesn't break the rule, as War Rocks found out the hard way. So let's take a look at why War Rocks returned to the Stone Age. War Rocks debuted as an exclusive archetype for the TCG set Blazing Vortex, being Earth-based warrior-type monsters made specifically to dominate the battle phase. Pure caveman Oonga Boonga energy. Swing until you hit home was the morale of this archetype. Does it sound like an archetype built for 2010? Absolutely. Why Konami decided to make it in an era of heavy negates is anybody's guess. 5 monsters and 2 spells were showcased for War Rock. War Rock Gactos was a level 4 Earth Warrior. When you summoned another Earth Warrior monster, you could special summon Gactos from your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon a level 5 or higher War Rock monster from your hand or deck. War Rock Fortio was also a level 4 Earth monster that adds a War Rock monster from your deck to your hand after damage calculation if your Earth Warrior monster battles. When your opponent's card effect's destroyed in the monster zone, it'll allow you to special summon a level 5 or higher War Rock monster from your deck or hand. War Rock Orpris was a level 5 warrior, and if you control no monsters, or all monsters you control are Earth Warrior monsters, you can normal summon it without tribute. If your Earth Warrior monster battles, after damage calculation, you can send 1 Earth Warrior monster from your deck to the graveyard. And then all War Rock monsters you control gain 200 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. War Rock Skylar was a level 6 warrior monster that gained 100 attack for each monster your opponent controls. And during the battle phase in which your Earth Warrior monster battles, its quick effect lets you target 1 level 5 or lower warrior monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And all War Rock monsters you control gain 200 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. However, you couldn't attack directly with level 5 or lower monsters for the rest of the turn. Finally, the boss monster of this archetype was War Rock Bashileos, a level 8 warrior with 2700 attack and defense. During the battle phase, if your Earth Warrior monster battles while you control this card, you could attack directly with Bashileos, and all War Rock monsters you currently control gain 200 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. While it was in your hand or graveyard, you could special summon this card when your Earth Warrior monster was destroyed by battle, but it's banished when it leaves the field. It's tough to find a silver lining with the first support of monsters given in the first wave. Bashileos sounds good on paper, having an effect that lets you attack directly if you battle. Gactos has a built-in extender allowing you to have an extra body on board if you want to do more damage or heavy materials for links, and Fortia added any War Rock card from your deck to your hand when you battled. Those were the few benefits of playing these cards. It was just everything else that was head-scratching. Why did Bashileos need to be banished when special summoned by its effect? Why did he need the monster to be destroyed by battle to be special summoned and not card effect when both of the level 4 War Rock monsters required to be destroyed by your opponent's card effect? Why didn't they let both battle and card effects activate the floaters? Why did Gactos need an Earth Warrior monster normal summoned first to be able to use as an extender? It's tough to defend this archetype when the playstyle contradicts its effects. The high level monsters were also mediocre. Orpis normal summoned itself instead of being a special summon. Skylar had no inherent summoning effect and stopped your level 5 or higher monsters from attacking when using its effect, making them both slow and a hindrance to the deck rather than actually being helpful. Though they both helped your monsters with attack increases, the increase was a measly 200, barely a solid boost for a battle phase centric archetype. With all that said, the monsters were nothing to be impressed with, but their field spell did raise an eyebrow, or at least made you go, eh? War Rock Mountain lets you search for War Rock monster on activation. During the start of the battle phase, if you control no monsters, or if all monsters you control are warrior monsters, you can special summon a War Rock monster from your hand with a different name than the monsters you control. If a War Rock monster you control would be destroyed by battle, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. It's never a good sign to see that your only sound card is a field spell. It searches on activation, protects your War Rocks, and helps your board presence by letting you special summon any War Rock monster from your hand on both battle phases. So, if there's any redeeming quality for this archetype, it would be that the archetype has this as its field spell. Finally, War Rock Ordeal was a continuous spell card that on activation placed 3 counters on itself. When your War Rock monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can remove a counter from this card to draw 1 card. When this card has no more counters, send this card to the graveyard. It's something, alright. While it was draw power for the archetype, it required you to battle and successfully pop your opponent's monster and send it to the graveyard just to draw 1 card. So if you were hoping to draw off of a token, or if the monster War Rock fought is banished, drawing a card is out of the question. To make this card even more unappealing, you could only control one copy of this card on the field, meaning drawing multiples of this card was a brick. There was better generic draw power in the game for you to use, like Pot of Extravagance, or hilariously enough, the new searcher Pot of Prosperity, also released in Blazing Vortex. To sum things up, the release of our Neanderthal archetype was terrible, and dare I say, unplayable. Wonky floaters that depended on your opponent destroying them, a boss monster that gives no reward for playing it, and mechanics that revolve around the worst phase to do setups already had us yelling for better support for the deck. Not to mention, the deck was a clear going second deck due to the need to attack monsters, making it nearly impossible to have a strong turn going first. Warrock Mountain was the only functional card out of the 6 cards. It didn't look great for Warrock to have any chance in the TCG. Lightning Overdrive confirmed our expectations correct. In Lightning Overdrive, 3 new monsters and 4 new spell traps were given to our cave-dwelling friends. Warrock Wento was a level 4 Earth Warrior monster that had a quick effect that lets you pay 800 life points to give your battling Earth Warrior monsters plus 800 attack until the end of this turn, if your Earth Warrior monster battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation. Mahmud was a level 5 that lets you normal summon without tribute if you control no monsters or all Earth Warrior monsters. And if your Earth Warrior monster battles, after damage calculation, you can target one spell trap card your opponent controls and destroy it. And then all Warrock monsters you currently control gain 200 attack until the end of your opponent's turn. Finally, Warrock Meteoragon was their new level 7. Card effects couldn't destroy it, and when an attack is declared involving this card and opponent's monster, you can negate your opponent's monster's effects this turn and the activated effects on field of the monster with its same original name. Its quick effect lets you make all Warrock monsters you control gain 200 attack until the end of your opponent's turn when an Earth Warrior monster battles during the battle phase. It even gets to make up to 2 attacks on monsters during the battle phase. By far, Meteoragon was a better boss monster than Basileos. Protection from destruction and its negation effect on attack with a strong on-field effect. The only downside was it didn't have the special summoning ability of Basileos, meaning that you most likely had to use Warrock Mountain to special summon it. Mahmud was an abysmal spell and trap card removal. Having to battle and being forced to wait until damage calculation to pop an opponent's card still gives your opponent enough time to activate said spell trap. In today's current formats, spell and trap cards are usually activated way before damage calculation, and rarely did decks have any spell or traps that needed to be activated by then, unless specified that it needs to be used during the battle phase like evenly matched. Even that can get around Mahmud since you can activate it from the hand. Wento was another terrible floater that needed to be destroyed by your opponent via card effect, but it did give a better attack increase for 800 life points. So if you have Mountain on the field, you can normal summon this monster, enter the battle phase, special summon Meteoragon, attack with Meteoragon, increase with Wenta, and then increase your attack with Meteoragon's effect, and have a monster with 3600 attack that could swing twice with destruction protection, and negate monster effects when it declares an attack. This is about as strong as the combos you can get from playing this deck. They did get one good spell out of this set. Okay, it was decent, but for this archetype, decent support was a godsend. Warrock Dignity was a quick play spell that requires you to control a Warrock monster and activate its effect. You could either negate the activation of a monster effect your opponent controls, or negate a spell or trap or monster effect during the battle phase. If the quote, "it ain't much, but it's a living" was a card, Dignity fits the mold. It was not by any means perfect, as the ability to stop spells/traps could only happen if it was in the battle phase, but it's a negate that Warrock could play anytime they needed to stop cards that could threaten their feeble game plan, including hand trap monsters or monster effects in the graveyard. You could even stop evenly matched from ruining the smooth brain rampage of Warrocks. Congratulations, your Wenta Meteoragon combo is now safe. Warrock Spirit was another quick play spell that lets you either special summon the target attack position, but for the rest of this turn, its effects are negated, and it can't attack directly. Or you could special summon that target in defense position, and the first time each Warrock monster you control will be destroyed by battle this turn, it is not destroyed. Warrock Big Blow was a trap card that could destroy up to 2 cards your opponent controls when the Warrock monsters you control left the field by your opponent's card effect. Warrock Generations rounded off the back row support. When your opponent controls more monsters than you can special summon one Warrock monster from your deck. If you activate this card during your opponent's turn, for the rest of the turn while you control the special summoned monster, your opponent can't attack except to attack the special summoned monster. Needless to say, Dignity was the highlight out of all of the spells. Spirit was a free body, but the restriction on bringing back a Warrock in attack mode made it unappealing. And if it was no more than 1 copy to get back a monster as a shield in defense mode. Big Blow needed your opponent to destroy your monsters to go off. And Generations did give you a free monster, but it wasn't great for a deck that wants to go second so it can start swinging and attempt its OTK. Even with Dignity, Wento, Mahmud, and Meteoragon added to the arsenal, the deck was still slow-paced and stuck being a going second deck. Trying to win a game through the battle phase alone wasn't a game plan that could win against decks with multiple negates and pops. The deck's lifeline also revolved solely on Warrock Mountain, as it was the best searcher and helpful extension. Losing this card during your combo meant losing the game alongside your mind, but then again, you probably already lost your mind trying to make this deck look playable. The final piece of support currently given to Warrocks came in 2022 in the TCG set Dimension Force. Warrock Medium was a continuous spell card. If your opponent controlled a special summon monster and you controlled a level 7 Warrock monster, neither player can activate monster effects on the field during the main phase 1. During your main phase, you can select a Warrock spell trap from your deck and send it to your field, but then you're locked into special summoning warrior monsters only if you use its effect. Warrock Mountain has never been so easy to fetch. At best, Medium lets you search your plethora of mediocre Warrock spell traps, and can become a somewhat value version of Tyrant's Tirade, shutting down your opponent's monsters during the main phase 1. Does that sound too solid? Well, leave it to Konami to make this card's conditions awkward. First, the card's requirements depend on the cards, both you and your opponent. Not only did they have to control a special summon monster, but you also had to control a level 7 Warrock, which were not guaranteed to have on your board in turn 1. Even if you get on the field with this card, it would likely be on the field during the battle phase due to you being able to summon it via Warrock Mountain, which brings us to the second point. The card's first effect would be meaningless up until turn 3. With this deck being a second turn battle phase deck that couldn't establish a level 7 monster until its battle phase, your opponent would most likely either do their full combo and establish their board by the time Medium's first effect would be online. Third, it also stopped you from using monster effects during the main phase 1, making it harder to splash other monster engines inside the deck if you saw fit. Fourth, the card only stopped main phase 1 instead of all main phases in general. If your opponent still has follow-ups or ways to clear your board, they can just wait until the main phase 2 to make plays happen. Fifth, this card didn't stop the activation of monsters in the hand or graveyard, making life easy for decks with heavy graveyard or hand effects. Lastly, most of the targets set with Medium would still take a turn for you to use. Outside of Ordeal, which you never played, and Mountain, your traps and quick play spells being set couldn't be used immediately. So while the card was a great way to get your spells/traps, its Floodgate effect had too many holes and ways to get around it. It effectively couldn't do the job it was made to do if your opponent was smart enough to know how to play around it. Such is the tragic tale of Warrocks. Prehistoric Homo sapiens just couldn't keep up in the TCG. It might be possible, however, for our struggling archetype to keep up in a much slower format. With its slower and simpler gameplay, Duel Links seems to be where the deck like Warrock could thrive. Battle phase-based cards see more play there than in the regular meta, and the ability to OTK becomes even more accessible due to players starting at 4,000 life points, and decks being no more than 20 cards, making it easy to get pieces. The deck can even get help due to Duel Links skills to help with consistency. Balance Warrocks is one of the most popular ways to build decks. The balance skill gives you consistent hand always as long as you carry 6 types of each card in your deck. So as long as your deck has at least 6 monsters, spells, and traps, the skill is live. And you can have a good hand pretty much every game with a deck with heavy hitters and back row for protection. It's for reasons like this that Warrocks can finally see consistent play. I'm still a bit puzzled about why people need to watch a 15-minute video about one of the worst archetypes to be made in the game's history to know it was terrible from head to toe. A battle phase oriented deck that could only set up during the battle phase cannot prevail in a meta where combos, multiple negates, and hand traps overrun daily Yugioh. The deck was the epitome of janky OTK, but was fragile without Warrock Mountain. You just had better options in decks like Mathmex. They could facilitate OTK cleaner and better without having to set up in a phase built to do attacking and damage. The caveman dot deck was slow to establish boards, and even when it did, the combo was mediocre, involving no more than 2 to 3 cards and needed to battle to have any impact on the game. Floaters that needed some weird way to be removed from the field didn't help either, as your opponent could just remove them with a different method to make sure you couldn't plus off your plays. Its dependency on your opponent popping your cards didn't do it any favors either. Needing your opponent to help get effects has been proven repeatedly to be an ineffective way to win in Yu-Gi-Oh! So if you've ever seen your opponent play these cavemen, and yes, cave women for the inclusivity, don't expect their impact to be huge. They're less Tardvosky's Primal and more on the Flintstone side of the game. Warrock was a solid attempt to bring a simple style that we were accustomed to back in the early game era, but it just didn't work in a game constantly getting faster. So have mercy on Warrock players. Like cave dwellers, they're scared of technology and can't read. Play with them at locals and then go hunting with them. As for now, Warrocks rock into the hall of failed cards and mechanics.